Hi, I'm Julie Fayfan Balzer, and today I want to share a little bit about how I like to layer my stencils. So let's start with our supplies, okay? First off, I have a heat gun because when you're working with stencils, you always want to work in layers, and it's important that the layers are dry in between to really get the cleanest and clearest results. I also have some palette paper. You could use a paper plate or anything like that. This giant thing is the deli plate, which I love, and I can't wait to show you all sorts of techniques for getting great results with your stencils in all kinds of ways. You can also make one. You don't have to buy a commercial one, and you can find instructions on the internet very easily just by searching gelatin printing plate. Next up, you can see I have these little daubers, and they look a little bit like old-fashioned stamps or something, but what they have on them is foam, and they're great to use with any kind of ink or something like that. We'll be using Distress ink with them, which is a great sort of hybrid ink. It's neither dye nor pigment. It has a much longer open time than traditional dye ink, yet at the same time it dries fairly quickly, it blends well. I really like it. I think you will too. I have brayers. I happen to have two sizes of brayers, and I tend to size my brayers based on the size of my printing plate. So using a giant printing plate, I'm going to use a larger brayer. That's just laziness. And with a smaller plate, I'm going to use a smaller brayer. Next, I have tags. These are a great surface for exploring. I use tags all the time to try out different techniques and different ideas. Some artist tape just to hold things in place. I have some oil pastels. I like to use the Craypause version, which is by Sakura, but again, whatever you have is fine. They're a great resist. That's what I really like about them. Okay, so then we get to stencils, which is really the meat of it, right? So there are a lot of commercially designed stencils, and all of the stencils that I'll be sharing today that are commercially designed are actually stencils that I've designed for the Crafters Workshop. And just a quick note about storing your stencils. I use page protectors, and you can see here that I just have some book rings in here. You could also put it in a binder, and what I simply do is I put a piece of paper, I mark the name of the stencil, I put the stencil in, and then I can easily flip through and get whatever I want, and you can see it's accommodating to the large size stencils along with the small size stencils, and then all these little bits don't get tangled together, and it's really easy to see what you have. The other nice thing I have to tell you is that when you go to put things away, if you go to put things away, you actually know what you have and what you don't, and so you can go looking for what you might have thrown in the trash or otherwise disappeared by accident. So besides those commercial stencils, which are fantastic, again, from the Crafters Workshop, you can also use all sorts of found stencils. I have, for instance, here a fly swatter. And believe it or not, this fly swatter has a wonderful pattern that's totally great for all kind of stenciling. I have a plastic doily. You can also find interesting paper products. People use a lot of, like when you punch out game pieces often from a game, just all sorts of fun stuff around, you know, and there's no harm in trying it. If it doesn't work, what's the big deal? But if it does, how awesome is that, right? So I have some paper stencils, and just cut out of paper, it's easy enough. These are some of my favorite stencils, and these are stencils that I have cut out of magazines. And you can see I have I think it's a Glamour under here. I have to admit, I tend to cut the magazines more than I read them, but you know. And then they're easy to make, and you can make all sorts of figures, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that on the video. I also have some stencils that are made from file folders. I really like file folders because they hold up, as opposed to the paper stencils, which you generally have to throw away after one use. They're more ephemeral. But these ones really hold up, and you can see that under here I have it's a pattern stencil, and it's a pattern file folder. And one of the reasons that I like it so much is because it's really slippery. It has a slick, shiny surface as opposed to a traditional manila one. So they're a little more pricey, but if you're going to be making stencils, so worth it, you know? The last kind of homemade stencil I have is these stencils were all made from Quilter's template plastic, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to work with that. It cuts beautifully with a craft knife, so that's really fun.